and now it has a lot of machine learning. And then the fundamental question comes that, does a baby know what is the color blue? Does it see blue? And if it sees blue, like we identify and tell the baby ki ye blue hai. Then after that the baby says that this is a name for this color. But in the beginning the baby is seeing the whole spectrum, right? Maybe there is no name for the color, but then we kind of give identifiers and tell the baby ki ye lal hai, ye neela hai, ye peela hai, ye kala hai. So she is asking the fundamental question that perception or that intelligence, wo kahan se aaya? Where is it? How is it coming? You know? So I think this is a deep and wonderful thought for us to carry away, that, you know, we have this deep sense of being, of coming, of doing. Where does all of that come from? Where is the fountain or the source of that? And I think that's a question that she's asking us to think about, look into our philosophies deeper and try to make the scientific connections, because most of us have become very, how shall I say it, we become very cynical these days. And we no longer, we say give us proof. Yes. So I think the proof, especially for artists like us who work by feel, like we work by feel, a lot of it is feeling. You have a feeling for something, you have a feeling for a material, and you start working with it, it becomes tangible for you, and you create stuff out of it, right? But that feeling, if I ask the artist, most artists, they like, thoda sochne do. You know, we don't know where it comes from. Nahi pata. So we are moving very intuitively. But she is saying that intuition is an intelligence. It is a very deep kind of intelligence, and it's connected foundationally to how the universe works. Is my understanding. Very limited understanding of this subject. This is a subject very close to my heart also. And in the last 4 or 5 years also, I've been delving a lot into the Upanishads. And the deeper I'm going into it, I realize that we kind of live jumping experiences like this. But every experience that we experience, like she's asking, salty क्यों होता है? या चीनी मीठी क्यों होती है? Are not things that we often think about. We just take it for granted. And we may go into like the chemical composition, and the chemical composition combinations may say that, okay, this lends the sweetness. But she asked a very interesting question. Does the sugar know it is sweet? Does the salt know it is salty? Does the metal know it is metallic? You know? So I think these are great questions for artists to go back with. And these are some questions we will now delve in a little more detail in the panel which follows. I'd like the gallerist Meghna Aggarwal, who is hosting this show, to please say a vote of thanks and present a small token to the speaker. Thank you, Meghna. Thank you, Soumya.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Meghna Aggarwal, running Gallery Kolkata. Just a little extempo. I haven't prepared anything much. We've just been trying to put this whole thing together. Thank you, Ankon, for curating this for us. We've all been working very hard to get the space together, get the show together. So any small things which are here and there, please overlook and be kind. However, coming to that, Gallery Kolkata has been working primarily in Indian, modern and contemporary arts, fine arts. And I've always had a deep love for design. And for our Delhi leg, we thought, why not do something more than just fine arts and include architecture and design. And I requested Ankon to curate a show for us, which hopefully will be well received. Coming to the talk, thank you so much, Dr. Soumya Gupta, for your very enlightening. You're so knowledgeable. My apologies for the space. We are constrained for space because there's so many works inside that we have to host it here, and there is of course noise from the traffic. But we all thoroughly enjoyed it. All of us were here. Thank you so much for sparing your time and coming and enlightening us. From the gallery side, I would like to offer you a little bunch of chocolates, which are basically designed around nature and around these 5 elements. I hope you'll have them, and thank you so much.
Thank you. We have next panel discussion, and the idea was that this show is very physical because we are talking about materials. The whole idea of the physical is that it's actually very spiritual because you don't know how these people have gravitated to these materials. So I wanted to investigate the spiritual aspect of why these people make with these materials. So in that context, we have some wonderful experts with us. We have Mukul Goyal. Mukul, please. And we have him representing, can move this up ahead. Yeah, and you can move this now a little bit to the, thank you. Is going to represent the materials of wood and textile. Shivani. We have Nitin Barchha. He's going to represent he's one of the artists in the show, and he's going to represent the material of concrete. And we have Srila Mookherjee. She is in a place called Pagla Chondi, which is in this place called Plasi in Bengal, and she'll be joining us remotely. So as soon as we are able to hook her up, she'll be on the screen there. So the idea was that we are makers, तो हम बनाते रहते हैं, but we rarely think about the process, our internal process that goes into that making. We do think about it, हम concept note तो लिखते ही हैं. But if I ask somebody to deeply delve into it, like a fundamental question, कि भाई नितिन concrete में क्यों बनाते हो यार? So then it will be like that. I gravitated to. So no, it's like it becomes like a very emotional kind of some organic. I fell into the medium. I loved it, and I continued working with it. So वो तो wishy-washy है बहुत ज़्यादा, है ना? But there is in Sanskrit there is a term niyati kena badhyate. Okay, so there is some fate and some destiny into how we tie into a material and start working with it. Somebody falls in love with ceramics or becomes acquainted with it and starts working with it. But I feel there is something inside of us which resonates with that material, and therefore we find that path automatically to that material, or that material finds a path to us. So these are some questions I'm going to talk about, and some artists of the show are also here, which is great. We'll open it out to these artists also, and we can have a bit of a heart-to-heart. That is the intention of this Chai Pe Charcha. Hopefully there will be some chai.
Yeah.
Yes, good. So I can call it Chai Pe Charcha. Great. So Srila ji has also joined. Srila ji, welcome. Can you hear us? Not yet. Can she see us? Srila ji, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can. Great. Welcome. So I was just giving a little bit of an intro. Thank you for joining us remotely for this. Echo. Okay. So I step away a bit.
You are better without mic.
I'm better without mic.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So you can hear us, right?
Can hear you more.
Too much. ज़्यादा ही सुनाई दे रहे.
शादी
लगता है पहाड़ पे.
Can you just say hello to us so we know we can also hear you?
Hello.
No. Srila, can you say hello to us so we know that you are audible to us? Hmm? फीडबैक हो रहा है. No, you want to just say hi to us? Great. You're a woman of few words, it seems. Okay, so we'll welcome to this talk. Thank you so much. And we are so great. Can all of you at the back hear her? Great, awesome. Thank you, Srila. So I'll do a quick round of introductions.
Yes.
Who sees? Okay, good, great, got it. Okay, so little bit of, obviously you guys know the thing that happens when I invite the panelists, then I say कि छोटा सा bio भेज दीजिए. Yes, you guys know this. Yes, so we'll do this not because it's the thing that everybody does, but because some of you may know them and some of you may not. So a little bit of a background helps to situate what they're going to talk about later, right? So Mukul I consider him a very dear friend and a mentor. I've looked at his work from a distance from a very long time. I visited his factory only once, his studio and factory. But I came away quite enthralled. And the written speech part is that he's a master of metal, I call him that, successfully walking the line between art and design, aesthetic and function. His USP is playfulness. ये आपके उसमें लिखा नहीं था, ये मैंने ऐड किया है. Because I sense it.
कुछ चीजें आपको बोलनी पड़ती.
कुछ चीजें मुझे, no, whatever I sense, I'm saying. So there are two brands that you may be familiar with his work. One is Tattva, and the other is Mukul Goyal, his eponymous brand. And he sells in more than 200 stores in India and in 30 countries as well. His installations, artworks, and architectural features dot prestigious projects in private and public spaces. His studio continues to research and experiment with myriad techniques and forms. Mukul has studied engineering at IIT Kanpur and then went on to do product design at NID, Ahmedabad, and Domus Academy in Milan. He has taught at various design schools such as NID, RMIT in Melbourne, and SPA Delhi. Mukul operates out of his studio and workshop in Gurugram. Next up we have Shivani Aggarwal. Thank you, Shivani. Shivani is a fine artist, visual artist based in New Delhi. She's a postgraduate in painting from the Wimbledon School of Art, London, UK, where she was studying under Charles Wallace Art Award in 2003, and she has a Bachelor of Arts in Fine Arts from College of Art in Delhi. She's had 7 solo exhibitions in cities as diverse as London, Lahore, Mumbai, Dubai, and Delhi, of course, along with solo projects at the India Art Fair with Studio Art, which represents her in New Delhi. Her latest solo exhibition was in Dubai in 2022 with One by One Gallery, Art Gallery, and the name was The Traps We Weave. I, in particular, wanted to invite her because she has this very interesting body of work where I saw initially that there was a deep, intense work engagement with textiles and various textile techniques. But in the recent years, I have seen her churning out fabulous work in wood. So in both, like that interesting jump or that connection between textile and wood is something that I want her to bring her thoughts and her expertise. We have Srila Mookherjee. Srila is a graduate of the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, and she specialized in ceramics. And she went on to Finland on a work study program and eventually went to London, where she learned the art of glass blowing first under Anthony Stern and then at the Glass House. On her return to India, she set up a studio in her hometown in Kolkata. Her inspiration is her passion for both functional art as well as for vessels. As well as for the vessel form, she says, a creative combination of form with function, craft with art. The spontaneity and impulsiveness of glass blowing, which is the thing she specializes in, suits her nature and the inherent natural beauty and expressiveness of glass as a material. And that is her motivation to keep working with glass. Each creation is a unique, unpredictable sometimes, combination of color, form, and artistic expression, and one of a kind, and is perfect in its imperfections. Then we have Nitin here, Nitin Barchha. And first time I understood that you're Jain.
Yeah.
Huh? Because your CV said Jain. I didn't know. Okay, cool. I'm surrounded by Jains, as a matter of fact. Is an alumnus of the Academy of Architecture, so he's an architect in Mumbai. Academy is a very well-known and old hallowed architecture school in Mumbai. And he completed his architecture in 2002. He established his architecture and interior design practice in 2006 after working in a few studios. And he established a product design studio in 2015. We know actually him for his brand, which is Material Immaterial, and which actually works at the tri-junction of architecture, design and art. The studio's recent projects, which are Sanctum and Recast, some of which you will see in the show, are a series of miniature architectural models. Sanctum of magnificent stepwells, absolutely love those things. Thank you for bringing two of them to the show. And different typologies, of architecture, where he creates these elements in Recast, which are open-ended, three-dimensional architectural puzzles. So in that sense, he has a little bit of a tie-in with what Mukul does, because his works are also playful in that sense. They are modular, and you can have fun with them. There's a series where he's created these games where there's a little steel ball, and you put it in his piece, and it actually does a very kinetic, beautiful thing going through the whole thing. So you must check out his work. So he kind of creates those, obviously with architectural elements. He's an architect, so वो तो कभी जाएगा नहीं. It is now ingrained in you. And the pieces at a smaller scale can be assembled together in various ways to create like murals. There's another beautiful work which is called Banaras Ghat in the show. Please have a look at it. And at the larger scale, they become parts of like furniture, sculptural walls, etc. Great. So introductions out of the way, we can start off. I'll take a seat. In the show, and I'll just recap quickly. There's metal, which is in particular in the show we are looking at copper, brass, bronze, but Mukul works across almost all metals, I think. कोई metal बचा है बचा.
गोल्ड में नहीं किया अभी मैंने.
अभी गोल्ड में नहीं किया, but सिल्वर में किया है आपने. सिल्वर में किया है. ओके, गोल्ड बचा है.
मर्क्यूरी बचा है.
Rare earth metals के बारे में नहीं बात करते. Okay, so my first question is to you, which is that metal क्यों? I'm going to ask the same question to all the panelists, in fact. And the question is not कि metal में काम क्यों किया, but the question is that why did you gravitate to the medium? You can of course talk about the physical aspect of कि I started and I saw and I this thing, but I want you to go a little bit deeper. Like the question is that to feel the reason for your resonance with the material and the medium. Yes. Yes.
The fact is, I don't question that. I enjoy the process of being in love. I think that is not important to me. That why did it happen?
Okay.
Somewhere down the line, if you look at where I came in from, I studied metallurgical engineering in IIT Kanpur. But that was not to be. I was looking at the cells inside. I was not looking at the soul of the material. You knew the equations, you knew the character, but that had nothing to do with what I do now. I create works of metal, which is to do with character, which is to do with shaping metal or to engage and play with metal. So I think I am lucky that metal found me back, and what can I say was my turning point? I went to after IIT, I was fooling around and landed up at NIT. At NIT, I fell in love with leather. And I wanted to work my entire life in leather, but नौकरी नहीं मिला leather. So, so it says, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with, right? So that's a CSNY song, and my travels and my experiences took me to Rewari, which is about
in Haryana. Yeah.
And it's a traditional metalworking town, and I landed up on a Oxfam project, rolling around, and started working with the Tateras there.
Tateras, the traditional metal.
So it's a huge center for Tateras. And I probably worked in their kiosks for over 6 months. And somehow the connect started building up again. The thing of tools, of how you shape material, how material comes to life, how every hammer, how everything is challenging yet beautiful. So it was a combination of the entire process of how material comes to life. And I saw how these craftsmen were giving things a life. But this was still from sheet. I really fell in love with metal.
The liquid.
Yes, the flow, the ability of material to become something that gives emotion. So for me, it was more to do with casting, through liquid metal, the red hot liquid which pours it goes into a kind of a mold in which you pour it and then you take it out and you process it. There are so many different aspects to materials and metals, and I think every material is beautiful in its own right. It's what you choose to work with or where you limit yourself to work with is more like. I think there isn't enough hours in the day that you can do all the materials justice. I think, So I have chosen in my own lifetime to be able to work with metal. And I think I've been working in metal for over 28 years now, and I don't think I've seen end of the day yet. There's not a single day I don't feel like going back and working more. That's what I can say about my journey with metal so far.
You already answered another question, which was that in metal, I was going to ask you, which is the sub technique which kind of most, and you already said that, the liquid metal with the casting. Okay, Srila, the same question to you, but how did you kind of, obviously you chose ceramic at NIT, and then you kind of went on to kind of specialize in glass. How did that happen, and more importantly, why?
How did it happen? Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can.
As I have said earlier, my father got posted to the UK when I was a young child, and we went via Venice, and I saw the glass blowers over there, and that at Murano, and that image just stayed with me. Even today, if I come across a glass blower, I'm fascinated by how they work. The material just draws me to it. So I joined NID with the hope that I would. Sorry, let's go backward. I've always been a maker. I've always enjoyed making. Whether it's craft, papier-mâché or crochet or sewing or something like that. I've always enjoyed materials and making. So I joined NID and I chose to do ceramics because at that point that was all that was available to me, either ceramics or textiles, which was material oriented. And there was always the promise that there would be a glass department. That didn't happen while I was there. So once I finished with NID, I went abroad seeking out glass, hoping that I would be able to work in it. And eventually, as you said, I came across Anthony Stern, who gave me the opportunity to come in and just hang around his studio and learn what I could, when I could, how I could. So I don't know what the connection was, but glass was just something that fascinated me and drew me to it.
Okay. So you kind of, obviously the childhood experience with Murano must have left an indelible mark. And then
The material itself is a very a sort of a magical material. It's fragile yet it's strong. It's liquid yet it's solid. It's uh, very magical.
yeah, I know, like we were joking yesterday that the pieces you sent, the glass survived, the wood broke. Yeah, so great. Thank you, Srila. So same question now to Shivani. Yes,
Yeah.
why textile?
So do I answer
Yes,
with
you do.
this? Okay. Yes, so I've had a similar experience. As a child, I used to see my grandmother, my mom, my aunts constantly working with fabric, with crochet, knitting, all the time. So there were these balls of thread just scattered around our house. Sometimes they were embroidery threads, sometimes woolen threads, and they were constantly working with them. So as a child, I grew up looking at these beautiful, colorful, balls of thread, and I would play with it. And they would teach me, while they were doing it, they would, very tenderly just teach me a few things. And there was so much warmth involved in it because I would see, as a child, I would see something growing, that little thread suddenly knitted itself into something big that we were wearing, we were seeing, we were being adorned with. So it was a very, very, very intimate experience with the thread. So I think I naturally gravitated towards textile, towards fabric, towards thread when I began working. I was using the images of threads earlier in my paintings. Then I began working with them as installations, and slowly I'm now using them in a very different way. So slowly my engagement with thread grew, and it kept going on. And even I would say my sculpture happened because it came out of these works that I was doing with the thread, and it kind of grew from there.
You're making rope forms.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things
I
like
was
that, so-
making. Now I'm making the rope form, but I would say, I began feeling the need of something very solid because thread was otherwise very, say, weightless, very fragile. I began feeling the need of doing something which had more, which had more
Volume,
strength, body. Yeah, so I, got into doing sculpture earlier with fiberglass and now in wood. Yes.
Thank you. So आपको सवाल है कंक्रीट क्यों और कैसे?
Okay, like you introduced me earlier, that I'm an architect
Yes.
by education, and through my practice, one thing that I've always loved to do, very similar to what Mukul just said, is that I have always been in love with the idea of making. That's one. And second is molding. The whole thing where a liquid or a viscous material takes form and then stays like that. It stays frozen in that form forever from that point onwards. So that was fascinating. Also because maybe it is also because I've handled concrete a lot during the practice, is why concrete became a material that I really loved to, or maybe concrete became the first material that I wanted to try and see if it did what I wanted it to do. I was also never very happy with the idea of people or anybody having a set notion about a material. So with concrete, you always know that oh, it's strong, rough, hard, and so on. So I wanted to challenge that, which is why when you see my smaller objects, they're like very tactile. Really means you almost feel like when you touch it, it will possibly change form. You know, so that's
Very little steps and
yeah. So and then how suddenly a solid heavy object starts looking very light just because of form. So those are the things that were very fascinating, and concrete was like the first obvious choice. And once I started working with it, I've just constantly been in love, and we figured out our own formulation, and like now I'm at the 8th formulation of concrete that I use. So when people ask me कि अरे क्या concrete use करते हो, मैंने कहा जो मैं use कर रहा था, जहाँ से तुम्हारा सवाल है वो तो चला गया, अब next क्या है वो सोचते हैं ऐसे. So that's how it's been, and the love has essentially been like very similar to what Ankon said, that concrete found me. I never there's no childhood memory of doing anything with concrete or any of those things, but I think concrete decided to work with me, so I'm with it. Yeah.
so I want this to be a little interactive, so I'll throw this open to the audience also, and I'll specifically pick people to also ask the same question, which is that, let me see, yes, very quietly sitting at the back are Gopi and Malvika. Yes, आप लोग क्यों concrete में काम किया?
I think, hi everybody, I'm Malvika and that's my partner Gopi. So concrete for us came with the background of interior designing and architecture. Gopi is an architect and I've done my interior designing. And yeah, all the exposed concrete buildings across all these greats, Corbusier, Ando, their works is primarily what inspired to try to do something with concrete that was just not building. It was not a bridge or a building or a house. So yeah, that's how small accessories started about 13 years back. We started with table accessories like trays and clocks and stuff. And then gradually somebody got in touch and said, why don't you make a center table? We broke 3 pieces, we made one finally. So that's how the journey started. Of course now we've understood the material, the mix, what is required, the mix that we have for our products and the mix. It is nothing that is flown in from anywhere. It is prepared right here in our factory. We've understood what chemicals need to go in to give it that final finishing, to take care of the staining, etc. So yeah, that's how concrete started to go.
So next material is glass. रेवती को दे दीजिए microphone. बताइए, why glass?
I am Revati. Well, I studied ceramics at the Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, and again, like Srila ma'am, there was a promise to have a glass department which didn't happen, and I ended up going to her studio to do my graduation project, and she just let me play around with the glass as a material, and told me to explore whatever I wanted to try out. So I was looking through the books and everything and trying out things, and I discovered how fascinating it is that you could just put it in a kiln, you could let it melt and flow and freeze it at a certain stage, and then of course there was glass blowing as well. So you can handle it at a liquid stage, you can handle it at a solid stage. So there were so many different ways to work with it, and I think that is something that kind of fascinated me with glass. So yeah, that's how I got into that.
Thank you. Babar, right in front. So Babar, let me introduce him. He works with a very specific textile which we know as Pashmina, which comes from Kashmir. It's, how do we see it? Do we read it as wool or do we read it as like?
Yeah, it's wool.
It's wool, right? So of course there are other textile practitioners here, but my question to you is, obviously because of your heritage and your cultural background, you would be familiar with pashmina as a material. But how is this? How the love affair happened, and how come you have become completely immersed in it?
It was actually a big accident. My background is I was at one point in time one of the top hackers of India. I'm a Silicon Valley techie. I had extreme aggression as a childhood, so that's why I think I became a hacker. I could not read things in the straight line. And while I was pursuing a very fast-paced life, in 2012, I read the news that 25,000 Pashmina goods died of starvation in my hometown. बस उनको देखने गया था. I joined a group of nomads. Pashmina comes from a good. It's called Pashmina good. It's very specific to that terrain. Ladakh में ना चंगथांग एक जगह है. It's very specific to that terrain. Joined a group of nomads. कि जाता हूँ उस जगह पे तो I left everything. और 3 महीने I travel barefoot. one mountain to the other to reach that spot. और 3 महीने में इतना कुछ हो गया था मेरे साथ कि मैं शायद जब पहुंचा तो सोच लिया वापस नहीं जाऊंगा. 12 साल हो गए हैं. I became a shepherd. I have been herding goats for past 12 years. I'm the only Pashmina actress in the world. वो जो तेवर थे हैकिंग के वो तो आज भी हैं, लेकिन पश्मीना ने मुझे थोड़ा सा स्लो कर दिया. और वो स्लो इनकाउंटर तब हुआ क्योंकि चंगथांग है 15,000 फीट, ऑक्सीजन कम रहती है वहाँ पे, तो बस तेजी दिखाई तो वक्त ने स्लो कर दिया, उस टेरेन ने स्लो कर दिया, वहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन के बिना आप चल नहीं सकते. तो पिछले 12 साल से मैं इन लोगों के साथ I'm trying to raise the voice in the inequality in the system. शुरू किया, कागज पे पेंटिंग्स बनाई बकरियों की, बात बनी नहीं. फिर मैंने कैनवस पे बनाई, फिर भी लगा बात बनी नहीं. मुझे लगा था मैंने उसका बॉम्ब फोड़ दिया, अब तो पूरी दुनिया को पता चल जाएगा, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. फिर मैंने अपना खून निकाला, बकरी का खून निकाला, पेंटिंग्स बनाई. वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा स्कैंडल हो गया. तो तब प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने मुझे इनवाइट किया, तो बाबर को करना क्या था, ऐसा ये लोग हैं जिन्होंने दवाई नहीं चाहिए इको सिस्टम में, इनको चिट्ठियाँ लिखो. फिर जब मैं ये स्पीड पर कर रहा था, उसी फ्लो में आई डिस्कवर्ड कि मैं अब क्या करूँ. तो मैंने बकरी के बाल ही उठा लिए. तो मैं बकरी के बालों से पेंटिंग्स बनाता हूँ, 2 इधर हैं. एंड विद दैट आई ट्राई टू कम्युनिकेट अबाउट थिंग. बट पश्मीना मुझे सीधा कर रहा है. ऑल्दो यू कैन रीड अबाउट माय वर्क, बट पश्मीना असली में एक ऐसा मटेरियल है जिसमें बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग मैसेज है, और इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग मैसेज है कि सिविलाइजेशन ने उसको प्रिजर्व किया. पश्मीना की और बड़ी खास बात है, लेकिन ये 6 times thinner than human hair, और इसके साथ 10 लाख लोग जुड़े हैं जिनकी हेरिटेज है, और इसको बचाना और इससे कम्युनिकेट करना मुझे बहुत मजा आ रहा है. और मैं पोर्ट्रेट्स बनाता हूँ, मैं काम करता हूँ पश्मीना को लेके, ओनली टू सेंसिटाइज पीपल अबाउट क्लाइमेट चेंज और इश्यूज जो है इस इकोसिस्टम.
Thank you. So you paint with the wool. Shivani actually draws with the thread. So good, great connection. Neeraj, आपने लकड़ी में काम कैसे और क्यों शुरू?
मेरा प्यार तो बदलता रहता है.
अच्छा, आपका बदलता रहता है.
लोग का एक ही रहता है, मेरा बदलता है.
So you are a fickle lover. Yeah, I am also a fickle lover. So yes, we are in the same boat.
So as a sculptor, started with metal. And worked with terracotta also. And you say like there's always a calling from the material. So and I love challenging myself with the materials. कुछ और discover, कुछ और जानने की कोशिश मुझे बड़ा मजा आता है उसमें. So wood में काम नहीं किया था कॉलेज में. At that time stone and wood, I mean मेरे को बहुत laborious लगता था कि आप पत्थर काट रहे हो तो wood में काम कर रहे हो तो finish कर रहे हो. But बहुत साल बाद जाके फिर मुझे अब उसकी खुशबू भी अच्छी लगती है, वो टेक्सचर जब निकलता है अंदर से.
You're using the traditional tools to sculpt the wood.
Yeah. So आप वो और ज़्यादा मजा आता है. शायद उस समय मैंने डिस्कवर किया होगा आप कुछ और कर रहे होते. But nowadays wood is my love. अब अगले शो में पता नहीं क्या होगा.
This wood which is in the show, what wood is it?
One is शीशम and one is teak.
Okay.
And because I wanted to experiment with the wood also.
The grain of the wood and the strength of the wood.
Yeah, challenging it. So that's my story. But I love creating with metal also.
तो मेरा शीट वर्क में ज़्यादा यूज़ करता हूँ उसको.
Okay.
Because I think my spontaneity, like it adds more value to my work and to myself also, to my process also. मुझे ज़्यादा मज़ा आता है. I can't cling on to the work for a long time. And wood के साथ यही चैलेंज मैंने लिया था कि मैं अपने आप को चैलेंज कर रहा था कि मेरी पेशेंस हो. So that's what I wanted to see, because जब आप काम कर रहे हो तो constantly you have to work for a couple of hours and लगे रहना होता है.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now we asked about like dabbling. Okay, so there is of course your first love, which is the material we talked about. Yes, but Mukul, other than metal, किस चीज में काम किया है?
It's not that you only work in metal, you work with lots of different materials. But you collaborate with them.
Okay.
So other materials for me have been collaborations. The core of what I do always remains metal, but not all the time is metal the most apt material for all the functions or communication or feeling that you're trying to generate.
What's the other natural? Wood.
So wood, stone. I have collaborated in concrete, leather, ceramics, glass at times. So it's been a whole mixed bag of materials that you work
And you combine
with.
them with the metal.
Yeah. So it's always the question that what am I? There's been plastic, there's been resin, there's been fiberglass, all kinds of materials that you can lay your hands in. But it's always towards the end of what you're creating. You're trying to be true to what you create, and then what does that demand from you in terms of material, So I think there's not a single material that one wouldn't have experimented with. Successful or not is a different story, but work with, yes. But eventually it comes down to the fact that it's
Appropriateness.
It's in a combination with metal, mostly.
Mostly.
I think it's never been solo another material, because that would make me feel like a fraud. Because I come from a position of strength in working in metal, and I think somehow I feel very jittery outside it. Because I tend to lose control. So the reason why I started working in my own workshop is that I could not handle working in another workshop. But there were too many variables. In metal, you can't work without a workshop. You need a workshop.
And the whole spectrum of the processes in your control.
Yeah, and so you need to control it as any artist would.
Absolutely.
Like to control as well as give way. It's a push and pull all the time with the materials. So, but if there's no control, there's only giving, not taking. And so that process works. So yeah, to answer your question, we work with most materials in some form or the other. Being very fruitful, because all these materials come back and give you better understanding of what you can do with your own.
Yes. It's in the combination that metal or nikhar ke aata. So Shivani, you were already saying that you needed like a little solidity. Your thread felt a little like wispy, or and I've seen your recent works where you're creating thread-like, rope-like things which are actually made of thread, but now you're sculpting them in wood. I understand that this is to kind of crave for that solidity. How has the experience been with wood?
So wood has been very interesting. So for me, the image comes first. So I never start with the material. I never actually started with the material first.
Okay.
So how the wood came was because I would always do a lot of drawings. So I was doing drawings of a sculpture that I was thinking of, and for me, it just appeared that fiberglass cannot work here. I was at that time working with fiberglass. So I felt that fiberglass is not going to do justice to this work. And I need to find another material that would justify this image. So for me, I'm married to the image more than the material. So today, so I do work in a lot of mediums, apart from drawing, painting, and apart from doing my thread work, apart from wood, I also do video. I also do video works. Because it depends on what I want at that particular moment. How is it, how should I justify the image? What is the image doing? Will it be right in a metal? Will it be right in wood? Will it be right in some other material? So for me, that is my starting point. Well, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of work in wood because at this moment it is justifying my images. It is saying what I wanted to say. At another point, if I want to say use another material, I may just do
The
that.
leap may happen.
Yeah, the leap may happen then. Yes.
Thank you. Nitin, of course, in your works I see metal. There is metal there with the concrete. Wood is also there. You are using a bit of wood also. And of course, as an architect, architectural materials are the game. You want to play the game with the materials. You want to play the game. But how is it? I mean, like Mukul, it's the same story. Like it's
No, so my studio is called Material Immaterial Studio. So let's begin there. I named it Material Immaterial because in the thought, material was immaterial from day one. It just happened to be the material of choice at that point in time. So, like she rightly pointed out, it's about the image. It's about the experience that one wants to create. What material really does it is just immaterial. And that's the principle that I've been following. Of course, one does get very comfortable with the material of your comfort. So concrete is the material of my comfort right now, and I am majority of my work is concrete, but slowly other materials are taking over, bits and parts as and when. So there's a mural that I'm doing right now, which has metal, concrete, has wood in it, has ceramics. So, like the entire array of materials, as long as it just conveys the image that I want to convey.
so similar to Shivani.
Very, very similar. So, in fact, that's what I was going to tell Ankon ki next question मुझे पूछना पहले.
Yes.
So that
पहले मुझे पूछना.
so that the answers don't look stolen. But that's pretty much the story of all artists is what I'm noticing, and I feel so part of the group or part of the entire commune of artists. So that means बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है, हमसे पहले लोगों ने किया है, हम भी कर पाएंगे. So that is like really satisfying and happy as a situation. Thank you.
Srila, so glass, of course, ceramic. You're still doing some ceramic, or it's only glass?
I'm doing some ceramic, but for me, it's actually the opposite of what the others have said. Glass is something that is so inherent to me that when I look at other things, I sort of think, how can I make that in glass? And as Revati said, glass has so many different ways of making. I mean, whether.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question goes to the heart of the matter, which is that how does the material transform you? Like you, of course, transform the material, but how does the material transform you in the sense that, do you sense that when you started working with the material, you were a certain kind of person, and then as you work with the material, has the material changed you? And if it has, how? Okay, so one by one I've asked a common question, and
He gets the first answer.
you get the first answer so that the other people will feel like repeaters.
So that's just joking. You can actually
No.
follow the series. Mukul, please.
Why don't you answer? Go on.
सीनियर ने बोला है, अब सुनना पड़ेगा.
अच्छा, अब सुनना पड़ेगा.
Tough question.
Sorry, I missed the question.
I missed the question only.
How does the material change you?
So, yeah, मैंने आंसर सोचा भी था, but then it just skipped. Age, I think this does this. So, yeah. So, I found concrete to be the most unforgiving material. Okay, and means at the surface of it just looks so easy. अरे क्या यार mold है, उसमें pour किया और हो गया. there's so many variables, and there are newer challenges that keep coming. So concrete has taught me to just keep at it. There is never going to be a time when I would have achieved the so-called perfection. There's always going to be something more, something better that one can do. So that helps me even in my practice as a designer. It just helps me stick to things. So just change. Change is the only constant. That's something that concrete has taught me, and I love to just keep changing. I'm like really, I just flip instantly. कुछ भी हुआ and you feel that hey, this could be a better idea. Let's just go with it. And I'd be more happy doing uncomfortable stuff than doing the already done comfortable. So that's something that concrete has taught me. Already something is going to go wrong any which ways. Might as well try something more, and
Stick to not sticking to
stick
anything.
to not sticking to anything. Yeah, that's what
That's a
concrete has
good
taught me. Yeah.
carry away for me from what you said just now. Shivani, textile also and wood also.
Wood also. So very interestingly, when I'm using textile, I'm building. I'm building thread by thread. Everything is based on construction. When I'm using wood, everything is based on subtraction. So that is very interesting because I'm subtracting from the wood, and in textile I'm constructing. So I have discovered these two extremes in my own self while I was working with these two materials. Very interestingly, I realized I'm split. I'm doing doing completely different, two very different things. One is to do with fragility, the other is to do with strength. One is weightless, the other has too much weight. So these two extremes I've discovered that I'm exploring, which is very interesting, and I'm really enjoying the process. एक से बोर हो गए तो दूसरे पे चले गए. It's like that. Yeah, so there is that. My work has made me extremely patient. I have begun. Everything is so laborious. I feel like that I'm just giving less hours every day, even if I'm say giving all of my time.
Were you impatient to begin with?
Yes, I was.
You were.
I was because sometimes unless and until you find your footing, you are impatient. Once you find that, then you are grounded. So I feel I have nothing but patience now. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but
सब झेल जाऊंगी अब.
Well, what can you say about the love of life? It's challenging, it's giving, it's forgiving, yet at times it beats you up completely. So working in any material, I think all materials have their own, challenges or giving, forgiving, everything. So I think as a material, it's not just a material. I think it's a whole domain of working. I think it's a complete zone that you're working with when you're working with metal or any material actually. Even wood is not one wood, it's not one kind of wood.
Different kinds of wood have.
And different sources, whether you work with the roots at all or whatever, So there are so many variants to it and so many things that you can explore that it's forever challenging you. And it's challenging your creativity, it's challenging your patience at times, it's challenging how you can get around and solve a technical problem at times. So, I think it's forever asking me to engage with it in so many different ways. And eventually, of course, there is an end product or an end piece that you're delivering to a customer.
Yeah.
So you also have to take into account those things, and eventually, all the techno-commercial aspects that come into play and all of that. But eventually the thing is like, in my field especially, I'm often asked the question, kitne kilo hai? Because ये पीतल कितने किलो है और कितने किलो का जाएगा. A lot of other materials are spared of that thing, but in metal you're often asked this question.
They can't ask the paper artist कितने किलो का पेपर लगाया है इसमें.
पेपर फ्री में है.
पेपर फ्री में है. पेपर कार्डबोर्ड कितने किलो का कार्डबोर्ड लगाया है.
The thing is, even that is a challenge. How do you address a client or a customer who's looking at it and saying,
Value.
So what is the per kg rate that you would have, and how do you deliver value beyond that? So it's a 360-degree engagement, right from creating tools to work with your materials. You take your own tools, you take your own things, you take your own materials at times that you smelt different alloys.
Have you done combinations, like new combinations of metals?
I can do, and I do at times for specific purposes that you add different elements to.
So the metallurgical background helped in that somewhat, or?
अभी मेरा ढलैया में ज़्यादा
trial and errors.
The guy who's at the bhatti, he's my guru.
Yes.
Not the professor at the IIT Kanpur.
Right.
Well, I have friends there who are professors there, but they work on different domains. I work on different domains. So my engagement is so 360 degree, so that forever it's making me grow, and I think that's really how it has changed me. It has helped me grow as a person.
You were also impatient to begin with, or?
Always, still impatient.
Still impatient. No, so metal hasn't made you patient. मुझे काम क्यों नहीं करते हो? Sheila, the glass, how has glass transformed you?
It made me a lot more patient, made me a lot more adaptable, because it's such an unpredictable material that one has to accept and adapt all the time. So, those are the three adjectives that I use.
So
patient,
like
adaptable, accepting.
So initially you would have been like, I want this, and then when you kind of get in the process, something else kind of emerges, and now you're kind of.
Absolutely, all the time. You start off with an idea, you start making something, then the glass has its own mind. And in fact, there's a lovely sort of quote which is from Dale Chihuly, where he says, "What I learned a long time ago is to let the glass make itself, use the fire and the heat, the centrifugal force and gravity." And that pretty much sums it all up.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What time are we at, Atul? 5? 48. Okay, so I think what we'll do is, I want to kind of also open it up to the audience. There are among us artists and practitioners, and I want this to be like a conversation, so that if there is anybody here who would like to say something or ask a question of the panel, they would like to say something about their material. What material do you want to talk about?
My question is to Ms. Sheila. What would be the most challenging part working with glass as a material for art pieces?
Two things. One is that, and I'm talking specifically glass blowing over here. One is the heat. The heat is intense. You have to deal with that. And the other thing is that you can't actually touch the material. You have to use, I use a wad of wet newspaper to shape, and then tools to help me. So those are the two things that are the most challenging for anyone sort of beginning to work with blown glass.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody? So I'll also ask one or two questions from young people here who have been starting to work with the material. Yeah, and there are synergies, so I'll try to connect. So there's a very young protege of mine here, Piyusha Patwardhan. She's a very talented architect, and she also has a love of textile. From her childhood, she also was with her mother, grandmother, and learned crochet, knitting, all of these techniques. She brought all of that to the studio, and now she's gone on a trajectory where she has taken brass or metal wire and she's doing crochet with it. So basically, you'll see some works in the show, which are her actually taking the textile technique but working with metal. Bolo.
Hi. So I am almost Gen Z, the last millennial, so I lack patience very much.
But when I touch any material, like be it paper, be it thread, be it metal, and I immediately start making something out of it, it makes no sense. There's no idea, but I just start giving it form. It just gives me patience as a virtue, give back. So that is what keeps me going, and also the idea to challenge myself. Oh, knitting with brass. Brass is a metal. Metal is strong and robust. How do you give it flow, a textile? That is what I want to surprise myself and my stakeholder. That is one thing that keeps me going as well.
Thank you. Vandana, cardboard से glass कैसे हुआ? You have two of your glass works here, and they are literally your cardboard technique, which is the layering. But you've done it in glass now. How has it been? They're super heavy. It was very difficult for us to move them. So how was it? How was this leap? कि glass में बनाती हूँ.
It was not planned. Actually,
Okay.
I did it for myself.
Okay.
And I got the inspiration from the sea. And I felt that why shouldn't I try glass, because I'm anyway doing cardboard. And it is like an extramarital affair for me.
Extramarital affair for you. Okay.
It has been 13, 14 years.
Working with cardboard.
Yes, makes sense, right? And
14-year itch.
yes. Yeah, so and then I realized that it is so much interesting to work with glass, because in cardboard you have to, like the way I work, I try to maintain the space, like उसको जितना कम कर सकते हैं और glass में हम space को दिखाते हैं. So when you see through it, you'll get to see the place entirely inside, and that is something I want to play more and more. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But layers के अंदर layers जब आप देखोगे, तो अगर वो आप एक angle पे देखते हो, so that will be very interesting. And that is something I want to explore. And then it was definitely inspired from the sea, and I had no intention to take it forward. Though as much as I felt about it, my true love is cardboard. And I still love cardboard more than anything else, except for my husband, real husband. So yeah,
Good to know. बताता हूँ.
I'm a marriage material for sure.
Okay, good. So you wanted to break the solidity of the cardboard and like look inside it, into the layers.
I love the layers. That's my expertise. Like I can do amazing work in layers, and that I feel is like मेरे अंदर बसा हुआ है. And I see it very differently. So that is my thing, and I would like to do a little bit of exploration here and there, and let's see how it goes. Like it happened. Like I got an opportunity to do a candle stand. And वो मैं cardboard पे नहीं कर सकती थी, hence glass happened, and hence the entire industry told me that why not. So I was like, let's do it. Like it's fun to go to different destinations and enjoy it, and glass is like that. And hopefully you guys will tell me that should I do it more.
You should. Hi. Amrita, hi. You're like, not me.
Looking away.
How was the flight? All good? Okay. So my question is to you that of course you create objects with light and things like that, but textile is one of the materials that of course you're working with paper also and paper mache and things like that. So among these, like of course this show has textile as one of the stronger materials. What is your sense of textile? What is it that kind of why? Of course I understand one is of course the light transmitting through the weave and all of that coming through.
I think textile for me was that. It was the light coming through the material, and I wanted, because light is one of my main mediums of work, I felt like I wanted a material that would glow. And initially, when I started many years ago, textile felt like the right one to begin with, because it also felt like it was easy. It was rather practical, actually, the decision at that time.
But since then, we've also added other materials to our palette of work. So a lot of my work is mixed media, but light continues to be the main thing. But within textile itself, we've been experimenting with color suddenly. So you'll see a little bit of color in the works that are here now. And we're also experimenting with surface. So we've brought in some embroidery detail, which I think right now I'm rather obsessed with, because there's a lot of exploration to do with embroidery, because when you light it up, you see it very differently suddenly. I expected it to react very differently from how it actually did. So we have a lot more work on that. There's a lot of, it's exciting. We've also dyed textile to see what happens when you pass light through dyed material. Because from what I've understood, off-white, which is the color we use a lot with our textile, because we're working with light, it works beautifully. But the moment you bring color in, it's completely different. It's behaving in a way that I don't want it to behave. So we've had to be really careful with how we introduce color as well. And I think we're still exploring. It's fun. But it's nice to also mix it with other materials, because then you're playing with different textures, different mediums, and it starts to contrast in a very interesting way.
Since you kind of subtly introduced the idea of color, can you give the microphone to Parth? Where the color is no longer subtle, but like really in your face.
When she said colors, so for me, like textiles, because as a product designer, I chose furniture, and then initially I was working with wood and metal, and upholstery is very important, like in furniture. So, and that changed the game, because we celebrate India, and India is about vibrancy. So when I introduced colors, like, because it's more about how, not me as a designer, but as a storyteller, I can create artistic pieces, and textile was doing justice to that. Like all my inspiration, what was coming on paper, then the prototyping. But the vibrancy was not very, very loud, but it was somehow going with the design. So, and then I think it changed me from a designer to an artist now, because it's like both. It's a fusion of art and a practical piece of
almost
furniture.
All of us here. So
yeah. So I love playing with textiles, because you have literally so many different kind of textiles, like from different regions in India. So we are still experimenting. As she said, embroidery is something we want to explore. Patches and the threads, the colorful thread spool.
Addition of pieces, and there's a piece by him downstairs in the show. You'll see that he used different reds, so they're different traditional textiles, and then on them he's put a lot of different kinds of elements which have been stitched onto it. So thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
So I'll now try to.
I have a question to ask.
Who?
You.
Me?
Yes.
I'm the moderator. You can't ask me a question.
Of course I can
Okay,
ask.
you can ask. You can ask anybody a question. Ask.
No, so there is this whole debate going on, and I think it kind of people circle around it, and I'm not one to get into whys, but to explore that why does this happen or something. But this, even Parth very heatingly used the word artist and then came back to design.
Designer.
I mean, design is better. I don't know about art.
Yeah.
Everybody skirts around being between an artist and a designer. I am very clear. I'm a designer. Period. Okay. I approach everything from being a designer, whether you can call it a piece of art or not, is not something I name it. It's up to people who are experiencing the pieces. It's up to them. But my process is that of design. But there is a lot of debate in this area. And so, what do you make out of it?
This is not the core topic in this panel, but I will answer it. No, it is pertinent to the show, because we had very long discussions, the gallerist and I, also that we are kind of treading into territory which is, because there are these people in the show also who are clearly in their feet in two boats or more than two boats, and I feel the definition primarily comes from market economics and the way the market economics operates. Otherwise, there is no definition. I mean, it's fluid. For the maker is a maker. At the core of it, the maker is a maker, whether it's an artist or a designer or an architect. But how the product which comes out of it is labeled a work of art, a work of design, a work of architecture, those are functions of market economics. How that work is sold, that's the only, I would say, the difference in something being labeled as is this design or is this art or is this architecture. Yeah, Sheila is nodding, which means that she probably agrees.
I agree with you fully.
Yes.
I also have a take on this,
Take.
but
Take the tick.
no, the difference primarily is being individually involved in the making process with real-time manipulation versus giving a drawing for somebody to make. Giving a drawing and getting it made through a process would be an act of design.
Yes.
Okay, if you have the real-time manipulation available on your fingertips, that while you're making it, you're actually interacting with the piece and how the piece is growing with your thoughts and your process. That's a piece of art.
Okay, that is your...
Yeah. So for me, the ability to not plan the end result so much as to engage with the process of it.
So you're saying if it's like a top-down directed process, then you'd say it's more design?
Yeah. So Anish Kapoor is a design.
But, so I just have a question here. Why are these...
So it's a drawing which gets made.
Which gets made. But you know, this is happening in art also now.
Yeah, so then
I mean, if you see the, I don't, should I take names? I don't know if it's appropriate, but if you see some large panels of artwork at airports, you know, there's a whole atelier of people. I think the honesty matters. For instance, the works that my studio produces, I say my studio produces, yes, and they may be at the art fair. When we put up the label, we make sure that everybody who worked on that project is there on that label. I think that's the only honesty which, to me, it is very important. The fact that the works are for sure collaborative. That, you know, 10 people were involved in the making of that work and not one pair of hands. I think as long as that honesty can happen, that artists also, when they are working, they will have studio assistants. There are works which are complex. Alex makes very complex works. You cannot put a 100 kilogram of metal flower up in the air on your own, right? It's not possible. So you will have assistants and you will have people who are sub-specialized in techniques within the thing that you have kind of seeded. And they are all contributing to that end product. So I think does this kind of answer?
I am not searching for answers.
Yeah, I mean, this is great because this is a conversation that needs to keep happening. I mean, like, there's no end to this, and you know, the market economics will always come in and kind of ask these questions. कि ये तो design product है, you know, whatever, कितने किलो का है ये, you know. So that, of course, we'd like to close with a speculative question pertaining to the material, which is that what next? अभी कुछ दिमाग में चल रहा होगा. Maybe you don't want to reveal the full this thing of it because there are things which are in process always in the maker's mind. कि कुछ हम करना चाह रहे हैं. Maybe it's just a doodle or maybe it's just a thought. I'll start with Srila ji. Glass में what are you planning to do next? What is the next adventure?
Trying to make a reed basket in glass.
Have you already done some prototypes or it's still a thought?
I haven't done any prototypes, but I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to do it.
Okay. So technically...
And it's not through gluing.
It's not through gluing. Okay.
No.
Okay. Mukul?
No,
what's the next challenge?
No, I'm trying to explore the other, qualities of metal. So I've been working a little bit. It's still in a very, very nascent stage because I have to learn a lot to work in this domain. Is things like sound. of various metals. Okay, so how does sound come into this?
Awesome,
So all the other qualities of metal which exist, so it's not just physicality of it or the materiality of the material. There are other senses which get, so when you work on touch, you work on, but I can't work on taste or smell, but I can work on sound. But yeah.
Taste maybe not. Why not?
Smell definitely.
No.
Smell, metal
no.
smell. Yeah,
By itself,
old
what
metal
about-
smell, the metal smell.
It's what gets deposited.
Smells.
Metal by itself is agnostic.
Does not smell.
But yeah, okay, so I'm
Yeah, understood,
exploring other
understood.
qualities, and it's still in a way because I'm musically very challenged. So I love music, but to understand various aspects of notes is something that I'm trying to learn to be able to work on this.
So I am at the moment involved with my textile works, where I'm making these very lightweight, free-flowing, free-floating forms. I'm just hoping and trying to come up with some projection where one can actually, have something floating around. I don't know if it's even possible. Probably it's an impossible work that I'm thinking of. And
Tell us a bit more. मुझे तो बिल्कुल समझ ही नहीं आया.
समझ नहीं आया. Okay, so I have these free-flowing forms that I work when I'm making my textile works. So I want to do something like a holographic projection maybe. So
With textile.
Not with textile, with just the image.
Okay.
Where something is just actually floating among us. It's
Okay.
With an audience, there is something floating.
So you want to do some work with light.
Maybe something like that.
Okay.
It's just in the mind right now. Hasn't.
Next philandering is cooking
yet to happen.
Cooking in the head. Nitin?
I have been, again, this will sound like a copy, but so now everybody knows what is the source of ideas, What is the source of ideas for the universe? Mukul Goyal.
I thought you were going to say it's all around us in the atmosphere. We just catch it. And we were like
in your brain,
and
metaphysics of it.
So sound and waves. In fact, before the lecture, there was this talk by Madam Shivani, Dr. Soumya, and I was absolutely inattentive to that talk.
You were inattentive, but you were asking questions?
But partially inattentive.
Achha.
Because I've had so much of waves and sound in my head for the last 6 to 8 months that I could not, digest more. So so in fact more to do with waves and frequency. That's what I'm trying to work in. But I'm trying to do something to do with solidification of waves or frequency. So it's.
And when we say that we have this belief or this thought, and the thought becomes very, what is the Sanskrit word for it? Very prabal. It becomes very strong, then you are basically transmitting that thought to the universe. And she says, of course, this is like the energy, she says, is like, in Hinduism we say it's an Astu Devata. So the Astu Devata is basically the energy. The Astu Devatas are rotating, revolving all around. And they say Tathastu. Astu, Tathastu. And when they say Tathastu, then the idea kind of forms in the head. And I think for all the makers here, this is very true that when you touch the material or the metal or the wood or the glass, at that time there was an Astu Devata and they said Tathastu, and then you started working with it. Thank you so much. Maybe over to you to give the vote of thanks on behalf of the gallery and give a small token of appreciation to all the panelists.
Thank you everybody for being here. Mookherjee, Shivani, Nitin, participating artists, and all those who came especially to talk today. Thank you everybody for patiently listening. थोड़ा सा disturbance है बाहर से, but I think we all managed because We know Pancha Tattva is more important and we want to understand what it is. Thank you, Dr. Soumya, once again. And tomorrow we have our opening at 4 o'clock. The show is opening. I welcome all of you to come and join the opening tomorrow. Artists are going to come. Others can also come in. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Kuju, I have all the token of appreciation. Get all the bags. Ankon has suggested, and they are based on nature. So I think it was a very appropriate token that we found for each one of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
और शीला जी को फोटो भेज दो.
Sheila ji, Meghna is Kolkata based, so she will hand deliver your box to you.
Please give my box to Revati.
रेवती को दे
She
दीजिए.
said, please give you my box to Revati.
Oh yeah, of course.
आ जाओ रेवती ले लो.
Thank you, and your works, of course.
Photo.
And Revati, please enjoy them.
Come.